How would you like to engage your audience and pull them in so they hang on your every word? How interested would you be in knowing of a technique that's going to get people engaged and interested in what you have to say? How would you like to have an audience that's really interested in what you have to say and leans in to hear even more of what you have to say? How would you like that? If that's something you want, then you're in the right place. Because today you will learn about the power of the pause. You'll learn about the places where to use the pause and how to use the pause to pull the audience in, get them engaged, and get them interested. Now, if you use the pause the wrong way, your audience may think you've forgotten what you have to say. They might think that you've got some sort of talking problem. Use the pause the right way, the powerful way, and your audience will be engaged, interested, and really wanting to find out what you're talking about, what you have to say. There are several different situations in which you can use pauses. And these situations are simple, easy to recognize, and if you recognize them and see them when they happen and use the pause at these times, your speaking ability will go from here to here. People will see you naturally as a leader, as a person in charge. It's a simple process, easy to learn. It doesn't take a lot of effort. And in learning it, you'll enjoy your speaking more than you ever have before. Because you'll get that audience connection that you've always wanted. You'll get the audience involved, get the audience interested in what you have to say. You won't waste any time. You just pull them in using a few simple techniques we'll talk about today. There are several situations in which you want to use the pause. And once you know these situations, you recognize them, you'll be able to get that audience engagement and get them saying, "Wow, that was a great speech. I want to hear more." A reaction like that, you'll be soon asked back to speak again and again and again. So today you will learn about the power of the pause. You'll discover the situations in which you can use the pause and how to effectively use the pause. You'll find out about some of the traps that speakers fall into when they don't use the pause right, or when they don't use the pause at all, because they don't recognize the situations in which a pause is needed. You'll be able to avoid the common problems most speakers have. Climb up to a new level of performance. All this will happen once you understand how the pause works. So today I'm going to step you through 3 different pausing situations. 3 different pausing situations that are key for the speaker to understand. And understanding and knowing and recognizing these pausing situations will make you a much better speaker. They're simple to see, easy to learn, easy to do. Once you know what they are. Once you know what they are, you see them, you'll know them, you'll be able to get everything done in your speech efficiently, easily, pull the audience in, get them involved. And the first pausing situation is something that many speakers do wrong. Because it's so easy to do wrong. But there's a simple way to do it right. Have you ever heard a speaker ask a question, and after they ask the question, you really don't know quite what's going on because the questions flash by so quickly, you really don't understand what the questions are or what they said, or what the question is important or significant, or even something you should answer, or whether it's rhetorical or something you should think about or not think about because you have no time to think it about because the speaker just keeps rambling on and on and on. Have you ever had that situation you know about? And that's what a lot of speakers do. Most speakers will tend to throw out all sorts of stuff, and it just hits the audience over and over again, and the audience can't really separate, okay, is this important? Is this not important? And that happens because speakers are a little bit nervous up there, quite often. And their whole thought is, I gotta keep talking. I gotta keep talking all the time. Because if I don't keep talking all the time, people think I've forgotten something, or I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'll forget what I'm going to say. So speakers are just rambling on and on and on and on. And unfortunately, because they ramble on and on, our brains never get a break. The audience's brain never gets a break. Have you ever had a speaker like that? And rambled on and on and on, and there was no break in their speaking? You ever feel tired after those speakers? Because it just keeps going on and on and on in your head, and you're just thinking, stop, I need to think. Because that's what happens. That's how the human brain works. People talk and talk and talk fine, but there has to be a point where you stop and let the audience process. Let the audience sink in on all that stuff you're talking about. Let it sink in. And that place where it sinks in is the pause. And a place a lot of speakers don't let things sink in is when they're asking a question. So pause after you ask a question. Now, most speakers pause something. They think they pause. So ask a question and they think they pause. And it goes just like what you just saw earlier. They think they're pausing, but they're not. They go through and they say, have you ever had a bad day? Well, many people have had a bad day. And if you've had a bad day, then you know what a bad day is. That wasn't a pause. Instead, if you're going to say, have you had a bad day? Say, have you ever had a bad day? Well, many people have bad days. However, some people don't know what a bad day is. Pause longer. One simple way to judge how long you should pause is pause long enough that you can answer that question in your own mind. What that means automatically, if you have a question like, have you ever had a bad day? Pretty quickly can pop an answer out. So that takes a short pause. Have you ever had a bad day? Yeah, okay, short pause, boom, and on with it. However, if you have a question that's a little bit deeper, a little bit meatier, think about it. It'll take longer for the person to answer. Where would you like to be in 10 years? That question takes a little bit longer to answer. So as you're going through it in your head, take a little bit longer time. Now, another thing about questions, and isn't the time to bring it up, that when you ask a question, make sure it's a meaningful question. If you've ever had a bad day, it might be a little bit not a deep enough question. Make the questions meaningful. If you do ask a question, make sure that there is a pause after. Pause just long enough so the person can answer it in their head. And questions are very important. important, and how to answer questions. But if all you do is answer questions, and that's the only place for your pause, speeches aren't going to be as engaging, as interesting as they could be. Because there's one other place it's really important to pause in. While it's important to pause after you have a question, there's another place that it's equally, if not more important, to pause. And most speakers won't pause there at all. And because they don't pause there at all, they lose their audience. They lose that opportunity they have to connect with the audience and pull in the audience. When it's done naturally, when it's done seamlessly, the pause can be very effective if used in the proper place. Questions are one place, definitely with questions. But it's this second place that can really draw people in. Because questions lead to this second point. This second point is really where it's at, really what it's all about, what it all kind of leads up to. As you're giving your talk, the questions will pull the audience in, and then you come to the meat of your talk, the important thing in your talk. And that's the place where you want to have a pause to pull people in, because otherwise they just continue to go on and they think about other things, they have other ideas, they have other thoughts. They aren't really paying attention. Good pause at this place can really help that connection work. And it's simple enough, but most speakers don't do it. Most speakers will just kind of cruise right on by and miss that opportunity because they aren't aware of it, they aren't thinking about it, they aren't focused in on it. Whereas a few very good speakers will find out where that pause is, how to use it, and where to use it. It's a subtle point. And where you're going to do that powerful pause is entirely up to you, but when you do use it and use it well, that can be kind of the turning point of your speech, the turning point of what you want to get across to the audience. And that second place you want to use your pause is if you have a powerful statement. You're making a powerful statement, a statement you want people to take with them and take to heart. That's where you have a pause. You know, all too often you hear things like, the most important thing in your life is to transform yourself right now. It's a matter of life and death. If you don't do this, you will die. But people don't think about that. They don't think about death, and so things pass over them. It doesn't really matter. As opposed to saying, the most important thing in their life is what's happening right now. And if you don't do it, you will die. But people don't think about death. They just kind of pass it right over. And so this important thing passes them right over too. See the difference? If the most important word you're leading up to is a person's possibility of dying, that's a pretty powerful statement. You will die. Right there. Boom. Wow. That's scary. Whatever you're talking about, I want to find out why. What's going on? That means after that statement, you want that statement to sink into your audience's head. That statement to sink into your audience's mind. That's the powerful statement. Too many speakers just blow right past those statements, and that's it. They lose that connection with the audience because they don't have a powerful pause. They don't have a powerful pause with those statements. Or they pause too short a time. Remember, as we said, pause long enough that people get a chance to answer the question. Here, pause long enough, people have a chance to have a reaction. If you're saying something like, you will die, you want to pause long enough so people think, whoa, this is serious stuff. What am I supposed to do? I better pay attention. I really want to find out what's going on. It's that powerful statement and the pause of the powerful statement that makes it work. Now, a powerful statement is an important place to pause There's another place to pause that shows that you're aware of your audience, shows you're interested in your audience, and shows that you want to engage your audience. And if you don't pause there, your audience just might be insulted. So far, we've had two places you can pause, really add to the power and effectiveness of your speech. One is when you ask an important question. You ask questions and you want the audience to think about the answer. That's a great place to pause. The other is if you ask and say a powerful statement. Maybe it's a powerful question you're asking. It's just a powerful statement. Either way, you want to give the audience a chance to let things sink in. The third type of pause is something that many speakers don't use. They just don't think about it. But this third type of pause can connect you even deeper with your audience. Because it shows an audience awareness. It shows that you, the speaker, are thinking about that audience all the time. But you, the speaker, are interested and engaged in that audience and give credit to the audience where credit's due. Most speakers will come through and they'll be talking with the audience, they'll get ideas in the audience, they'll just kind of blow right on past that. It's no big deal. And people in the audience can feel hurt because the speaker's not paying attention to them. If you've ever had a situation where a speaker asks for your opinion about something and then never uses that in a speech, never gives you any credit for it, you can get pretty upset at that speaker. Feel like you're being led along the garden path. It's like, hey, you asked my opinion, I gave it, and I don't get any credit for it? You don't care? You're just wasting my time? That'll really tick off an audience. Fortunately, if you have the right type of pause in the right place, you can get the audience back. You can show that you care. Show that you're interested in the audience and interested in what they have to say. It's a simple little thing to do, but it'll get people involved, it'll get people interested, and it'll get people thinking, oh, that person's aware of me. That person has my best interests at heart. I think they're sincere. I think I want to pay attention to them. Simple little pause. And the place is, if you pause after someone says a really good statement or posts a really good question, just a kind of a thoughtful pause. Like if someone asks a question that kind of sums up what your whole speech is about. You're going through some type of a question and answer session. Someone says, what about this? And it's like, that's the entire speech. A little pause can help. Because someone says, wow, pauses can have a lot of meaning, don't they? Yeah, pauses can have a lot of meaning. Thanks for bringing that up. That's exactly the point. Pauses have meaning. So if you're going through a question and answer session and someone brings up that pauses have meaning, pause. Take a little bit of time to just stop things right there dead and say, that's a great, great statement. That's a great question. Do pauses have meaning? Yes, pauses have meaning. And it allows people to think, oh, wow, that guy really nailed it. Or that girl really nailed it. And it makes that person the star. Just that little pause can make the audience the star. If you can make your audience the star and make them feel special and paid attention to, let the audience know that you're there for them and you're listening to them and paying attention to them, that goes a long way. It really gets people thinking about and listening to you, because if you listen to the audience, your audience will listen to you. And a little pause after a significant question or a significant point someone in the audience brings up, that shows you're paying attention. And most importantly, you're paying attention to them. Most speakers that get lost up in their own speaking are so concerned about what's going to happen next, they'll forget about the audience. But if you're going to have a successful speech, it's all about the audience. A little pause after somebody brings up a great point or brings up a great question, really help acknowledge the audience and show that you're really aware of the audience and give them full credit for all the great things that they do. So a little pause after your audience makes that powerful point. Pause is powerful, and there are 3 different ways you can use a pause to get that powerful effect with your audience. The first way is if you pause after you ask a question. People need a chance to let things sit in their mind. So if you pause after you ask a question, it gives them a chance to think about that question, to really go over it and figure out, okay, what's the answer to it? Where am I going to take this question? And that works if they're answering the question in their own mind. It's especially important if you want them actually to respond. You want to make sure there's enough time that people have a chance to think about the question and answer it in their mind, or if they're going to respond, to decide how they're going to respond. Pause a little bit after the question. The second way we talked about was pausing after you have a powerful point. If you make a powerful point and just rush on through it, then there's really not much a chance for people to have any sort of reaction, any sort of sense of what that point is. In fact, they might miss the point entirely. After you make that powerful point, pause just a little bit. Pause a little bit so the point can sink into the brain. Again, it needs time to sink in. It needs time for that point to sink through so the person understands the point and says, ah, okay, that's a powerful point. Got to think about that. And finally, we said that you want to pause if somebody asks a particularly good question. If you're in the audience and they ask a good question, or they even make a good point, when you're having some type of question and answer session or some type of interaction with the audience, or you just have people shouting out answers to your question, if someone really nails it and just hits exactly on the head of what you want them to say, give them a little credit. Have a little pause. A little pause there so the entire audience knows, wow, that person really nailed it. That guy, that girl, they really nailed it. They know what they're talking about. And that lets the audience know that you, the presenter, are very aware of them and very interested in them. Most speakers won't use the pause because it scares them. It scares them because if they aren't talking all the time, they're afraid they're losing their audience. What most speakers don't know is that in talking all the time, they're just driving their audience away, because they're overwhelming their audience with so much information and there's no time for it to sink into the brain. So most speakers drive their audience away because they don't use the pause. Or if they do pause, it's way too short a time. People have no time to really think about, and let sink in that message. A few speakers, a few good speakers, use the pause well. They use it for situations like questions. They use it when they're trying to make a powerful point. They use it to connect in with their audience. They use the pause well, and so these speakers get a little bit of recognition. These speakers, when they speak, the audience pays attention. The audience knows there's something different about these guys as opposed to most speakers. The audience just senses it. There's something about this person that makes them just seem like they know what the heck they're talking about. They have a great way of just getting to the point. The audience enjoys being there. And they learn something that they can take with them and use and build and develop and grow in their lives. It's a simple matter to move from being most speakers to becoming the speaker. All you have to do is to be aware of the power of the pause.